Hey, Dave LeCallion with HeadGames Motorworks. Today we have another teardown BMW S52. Guy bought it secondhand, brought it here to make sure that it's all good, and it's not. Check it out. These heads are pretty cool. They actually come with BMW bronze guides from the factory. I'm not familiar with the grade of bronze. They could even be a copper bronze, but either way, right from the factory. They come with a valve guide that's going to take heat away from the valve. So if you're a fan, you know that we love using bronze guides. We put bronze guides in everything. It has the natural lubricity, so there's less friction, takes heat away from the valve. There's just all pluses when you go to use them. Another cool attribute to this head is they actually CNC the bowl. So you don't need to get them pocket ported. This thing is already done. It's the size. Is it a little bit big for my taste? Absolutely. But either way, this thing's all blended and you really can't do anything else about it. And they even do the short side, which is pretty cool. And you'll also see that they CNC the entrances. Why they do that, I really don't know. I don't think there's really any airflow there, but they do it. You see that there's like a little weird wear pattern here. You can see where the contact patch is very, very thin, and the rest of it has like a shade to it. And they're not, I mean, they're very consistent, but why would the contact patch be way down here? I'm also noticing how the seat on the intake side, see how like this one's really, really wide, and this one you can kind of see the top angle, but they kind of look rounded over. And again, the patch, the contact patch is like right here, if you can see the line, and then up here is open, which they should actually be the entire circumference, and it should be the total width of that 45. We're going to circle back to that, what we're just talking about there. I also took notice that it looks like they had an Athena head gasket. The Athenas have this really, you can feel it. They put a, like they dig into the cylinder head, and I'm not a big fan of them because I feel like it torques the head wrong. You know, obviously you're torquing the head down and you're not going to be doing it completely evenly all the time, and I've seen a lot of heads warp from doing this. Not a Subaru head problem, but when we use the Athena head gasket, I've seen in the Subarus that I get phone calls that the lash is wrong. And I would think that that's because the head's being torqued on top of something that crushes, and it crushes really hard into the cylinder head, and obviously you're torquing in a sequence, so maybe the head's not going down evenly. I'm not going to claim to be an expert on this, but there is something going on with that. A lot of times when you see a lot of oil deposits, now the head's been cleaned already, but there's a lot of oil and soot in this, that tells me that there was a ring issue. What happens during a ring issue is the oil is going to go past the second ring and the first ring, obviously, and it's going to have oil in the combustion chamber, and it has nowhere to go. It doesn't detonate, so it just goes out the exhaust port. It had a pretty cool Eibach, I'm going to guess from the verbiage on there. It's an Eibach spring, dual spring. Eibach makes some pretty nice stuff. We have not checked in spring pressure yet, but this is a VAC Motorsports valve spring kit, and VAC obviously knows what they're doing. This spring kit came from VAC, and they have their own tool steel retainer. This tool steel retainer is not as heavy as the factory one, and it has the strength of the steel, but not as much weight savings as the tie. But you know, either way, where this guy's going, this is perfect. Valves tell a big part of the story because, as you can see, there was a lot of oil deposits on the back of the head. Now, I explained how I could think, I was theorizing that it could be the oil I was looking at was from the ring, but it looks like to me it was coming from outside of the engine. And why do I say outside of the engine? Because there's really no way of oil getting this much oil, at least from a valve seal. It's usually from a catch can or what have you. So this car originally made 600 horsepower, it's boosted, and it looks like it had a little bit of blow by, and it could also have had some issues with oiling, and it went back into the intake port. Pretty neat is, so BMW comes with a triple groove lock, and that's 1, 2, 3. So this valve train actually has a single valve lock. This is from SuperTech. It's a pretty cool idea. They had triple groove. The valve's going to spin, and it's going to spin very fast while it's in the retainer, and they slow it down. They make their own lock. You can see their own locks here. They make their own lock, so that way you don't have to use the triple groove, and it gets it away. Now, these retainers probably work with both locks, so no big deal, but pretty cool from SuperTech.
Are we going to talk about why this guy is white?
We can talk about why this guy is white. So we were talking about the oil. Oil always burns white. So this is how you know you had some kind of oiling issue. You will see oil turn white on the back, and it's really hard to get off. You can hear it. It almost crystallizes over the whole thing. That's what oil looks like when it's burning.
So I thought that was oil too.
But it's not as hot. So the intake valve is obviously not dealing with the combustion of the exhaust gases, right? So this valve doesn't get as hot, so it just cakes on there. It doesn't really do much. Whereas on the exhaust, it's going to burn it. So are you ready for the crown jewel of what was wrong with this thing? I actually couldn't believe it. I got called out to the shop. So whenever we always do 2 inspections on cylinder heads that come in. So there's a teardown, there's an inspection, then it goes through another inspection by a senior tech to ensure that whatever the first tech didn't get, it just gets double checked. So when there's a third inspection, that's me, that's when you know you're messed up. And this was thankfully caught. First off, we have valve guides that are a little worn, but the biggest thing is the guy put an oversized valve and didn't valve job it. So now the height is wrong. The height's completely wrong. As you can see it in this valve here. So we just did like a little marker, and you can see, and that's why you're seeing all the marks I was talking about on the valve seat and how the valve seat was wearing a little weird. So this line right here should be where this black is, but instead it's all the way up here because it's an oversized valve and they didn't valve job it, they just stuck it in. So now the heights are completely wrong, and when the height's wrong here, it's also wrong on the other side. So the problem here is now the spring height's going to be off. It's going to be tighter. The lash is going to be off. All the geometry of the valve train is completely out the window because they didn't install it at the correct height. Whenever you put an oversized valve in it, you have to valve job in order to make the seat wider to accommodate it, or you're just going to be doing nothing. It really does nothing but hurt it. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a stock size valve back in this head. We're going to valve job it. We're going to put bronze guides in it. And we're going to put back his SuperTech and VAC Motorsports valve train, and this guy's going to be good to go for happy boosted beatings. That's it for me today. Hope you enjoyed it. Ask questions, comment below. I'd love to hear from you. Toodles.